Hello, and welcome to Super Mario Mayhem. In the last video, we played Donkey Kong, the Famicom version, and in this episode, we'll be playing the other launch title for the Famicom, Donkey Kong Jr. So in the last video I mentioned about how the arcade version of Donkey Kong was decided to be the inspiration for the Famicom and how they wanted to create an accurate port of it, and it turned out that they had to cut a stage, so that statement really isn't that true. I would say the opposite applies to Donkey Kong Jr. because in this version it has all the stages, which kind of perplexes me, because if they were able to add all the stages in this version, I don't understand how they couldn't do it in Donkey Kong. But regardless, this is another port of Donkey Kong Jr. It's going to be a lot easier than the arcade version. A lot of these arcade ports have toned down the difficulty when it comes to the home console ports, but regardless, let's just get straight into it. So like in Donkey Kong, we're just thrown straight into the game. No cutscenes or anything. And yeah, it's basically just Donkey Kong Jr. on the Famicom or NES. Sprites again look more faithful to the arcade version than the other ports that we look at. Everything's in check. Yeah, this is just yet another port. Given that we're still early on in the project, I would say when compared to the other home console that is considered a good port, which would be on the ColecoVision. Wow, I am just not paying attention in this episode. Alright, let's give that another go. This time actually focus on the game a little bit more, while also trying to think of things to say so you're not just watching me play the video game. You know, this is another version of the game that I've played a million times before through the re-releases. Primarily the Nintendo Switch Online service. That's where I've played a lot of these NES games before. But yeah. When I'm looking at this and thinking back to the arcade port, it really is coming to me how, like, it could just be me, but the colors here seem a little bit more washed out. There's more of this, like, tanish color that doesn't really look well on some of these sprites. But I assume that's because the Famicom's or NES's color palette doesn't really have a good yellow color, so they had to go with this tannish, sand-like color. But it's not bad. The sprite structure is still accurate to the arcade, or it's just that it's, you know, a little bit less colorful, is what I would say. The NES isn't really known for having that colorful of a color palette, but honestly, none of the other home consoles available at the time really had that colorful of a color palette. But again, it could also just be, you know, because I'm playing this on emulator, you know, the colors aren't as bright as they could be. But you know, as long as the game plays well, then I don't care about if the graphics look like ass or not. I just want to play a video game for crying out loud. But yep, and that is a loop of Donkey Kong Jr. I don't know what I'm gonna do for the rest of this episode. I'm looking at the corner and I just realized I must have gained an extra life at some point. So, you know, I'm unsure if I'll keep playing until I game over or not, but, you know, whatever works. If I end up playing this for longer than it needs to be, I'll probably cut to when I lose my last life. And I'll just keep playing until I game over. Because I have nothing else to say. So, you know, I'll cut to when I lose my last life. Well, there goes my last life. I've gotten to level 4. I wasn't kidding when I said this port is a lot easier than the arcade version. I think in the video for the arcade version I had to cut 3 times because I died, lost all my lives before I even finished one loop, like twice. But in this one I got to 3 loops before I lost all my lives. But yeah, that's gonna be it for Donkey Kong Jr., the Famicom/NES version. It is a pretty faithful port, but I would say it lacks in the graphical department. It's a lot less vibrant than the arcade version, but you know, that's what you get for working with a limiting color palette. So yeah, join me next time. Let's see what's next. Join me next time, and we'll be playing more Donkey Kong Jr., but it's not on the Famicom. I'll see you next time.